So without further ado, Keith, if you want to start, because I know you've got to pick up your wife at some point, and we don't want you to be late, because I know how I would get beaten if I was late. Thank you.
I do. As you all know, Sharon, she'll probably relish beating you up, all 100 pounds of her. So she's at the farmer's market at the moment. So I chatted to Russ, I think yesterday, and I said, look, we can deliver a quick talk on making money out of bees and beekeeping and the hive products. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to just go through some of the options that you have. And also, some of you might be looking at going from, let's say, 2 hives to 10 hives, or from 10 hives to 60 hives. And what are the options that you have, and how do you make money out of the honeybees? So anyway, I can go back. I had my older brother who started beekeeping with me, came out and visited about 3 weeks ago. And we went through the time period when we started. And he reminded me of certain things when him and I started and our first swarm arrived. And it was November 1973 that we started. So that will be 50 years of beekeeping in November. So it was quite interesting. I always thought it was 1976, but he had the exact date there. Anyway, so let's start off. Early on in my beekeeping career, I'd already been beekeeping for 8 years. I was working with somebody. This is a guy who was actively engaged in normal work. So he's a full-time worker, but he did beekeeping part-time. So he had about 10, 15 hives. And what he would do with the hive, with the honey that he produced, is he would just give it away. Now, he was beekeeping with me, and we were doing it together, and I would sell my honey. So eventually I would go to him and say, look, you're wasting your $600 a month, in the season when he gets the honey. And it was quite an eye-opener for him to see, I'm just giving this honey away. And he even said that sometimes I give the honey to people and they don't appreciate it. They might not like honey, but he gives it to his neighbors and so on. So one of the things to do is to think commercially or efficiently about your honey. A lot of the mistakes that beekeepers make is they will just give honey away. I do this as well. One of my sites, I hand honey out to the workers that work there. And over the years, I've gleaned that they're not really keen on the honey. So I'm giving them honey, but they don't appreciate it. So, things like, I'll give her, no, I don't feel it. My wife doesn't like the honey. And, this thing, it's okay. It costs us a lot of effort. And also, if you're giving honey away, it costs you because you're paying for the bottle, you're paying for the labor, you're paying for the label as well. So it is expensive just to hand out honey. Okay, so there are different aspects. So first of all, what area? If you're planning, making money out of your honey, your beekeeping products, things like royal jelly, things like propolis, things like wax. Normally, we associated beekeeping, mainly in the States, is with honey and selling the honey. The honey is the most valuable thing. But your bees as well form an integral part. You might become a seller of bees. You can advertise and say, look, I have beautiful queens and I will sell nucleus hives throughout the season. You don't have to sell honey. You've got to identify a market. And you can go into that and then capitalize on royal jelly, propolis, wax, honey, whatever your area is. Now, comb honey is quite popular. You might have chunk honey, which is the comb inside a bottle, and your audience now, or your customers will often determine which direction you go. I prefer to sell glass bottles, but unfortunately, the customers I have prefer plastic. So I use plastic bottles because that's what sells more. Okay, so you're thinking about starting, how much can you make? And it's often how creative you are. My wife has gone into a totally different direction where she does a lot of candles. She does a lot of cosmetics. She has a lot of things like the polish for your boots. all made with natural beeswax and propolis and all the different ingredients. We even harvest royal jelly at times, and we add it in, not that we know that it's better or not better, but also one of the things to do is there was a talk given by Mark Antunes from Montgomery County, and he was talking about the fact of going from a normal beekeeping where you have your 2 hives, your 5 hives, you're just doing it, you're making a little bit of honey, and to go into really making money. And he mentioned the fact that once you get to 60 hives, it becomes economical. And that is the break-even point, is your 60 hives. Once you get 60 hives and the production and the cost of your equipment and everything seems to balance out. Another retired teacher gave a talk exactly on this, and he went through his ideal number. So he'd retired from teaching and he wanted to make money out of beekeeping. And he said 87 for him, 87 hives was the amount for him that he could make the same amount as his teaching job gave him. So they're very interesting little pieces. You know, what everyone thinks is the ideal. How much honey do you need? How much can you actually make from beekeeping? And so on and so forth. So first of all, we talk about products of the hive. If I go to Europe, did you know that 50% of all honey sold, more than 50% of all honey sold in Europe is in fact creamed honey? So this is the honey where you use the dice method. You use a 58 degrees and you slowly mix the honey and you keep it at 58 degrees and you add a seed to it and then you get your creamed honey. Okay, over 50% of all the Europeans like that honey. Now that's maybe over here in the States, it's 5%, if it is 5%. Most people prefer the liquid honey. In the States, you'll find that most people don't like the comb honey. So if we go back 100 years, it was virtually comb honey was the only thing that they had. It is now much easier. Who's the world's biggest consumer of honey? Which country in the world consumes the most honey?
Ukraine. Germany.
USA, United States, America consumes the most honey. They purchase the most honey. So there we have it. So you've got the market, you just need to advertise it and get your product out there. What percentage of adulterated honey is in our supermarkets?
90.
No one knows, but they recently did they're doing these really in-depth surveys and analysis of the honey. They did one with, the interesting one is the Indian honey. Now, India produces a huge amount of honey, and they could not find one sample of Indian honey that was not adulterated. The main adulteration technique is rice syrup was added to the honey to bulk it up. Okay, so that's the main thing. So a lot of the honey that you're buying that might be imported is not. Okay, something like China is on the region of 60% adulterated. Argentinian honey was one of the better ones. Of all the samples, 40% was adulterated. So a lot of the foreign honeys, and I think a lot of our customers know that a lot of the bought honey is not in fact honey. If you add high fructose corn syrup, that slows down the crystallization. Another thing with marketing your honey is also, if you heat it to 140 degrees, it kills the enzymes, and it allows you to filter, to maximize the filter, to take out all of the pollen and the nutrients inside there, and killing all the enzymes, the invertase, and so on. So this over here will allow a longer shelf life, but obviously decreases the nutritional value of the honey, the health benefits of your honey. Okay, what about things like royal jelly? Okay, is royal jelly a viable option? Royal jelly, which country in the world is a leader in royal jelly production? China. China is the leader. They even have genetically selected for the queens that are more likely to deliver large amounts of royal jelly in the manufacturing of the queens and more adaptable to it. So they have got very good royal jelly production. So, and the reason for that is they've got the market for the royal jelly. The average number of beehives in a Chinese apiary is, or in owned by a husband and wife team, and that is 50 hives. So they deal with 50 hives, and they will farm them intensively, and their main product is royal jelly. If you look at some of the other areas, Eastern European, which country in the world has the bee and honey and bee products as the national symbol? Anyone know? Romania. Very close. Near Romania.
Hungary. They're Poland.
Below Poland.
Below Poland. Belarus.
Slovenia.
Slovenia. Okay.
Slovenia. You probably all heard of it. You couldn't think of, I mean, there's Slovakia and Slovenia. They sound very similar. But Slovenia is the country that specializes in linden honey. So linden honey is one of the best. We unfortunately don't get it. But now graduating from an economics point of view. Okay, so now you have 2 hives. Okay. Is it worth your while to go to 10? Can you make money? Is it worthwhile? Now, a lot of you as a beekeeper, you'll be looking at it saying, yeah, I've spent so much money on beekeeping. Do I get anything back? Okay. If we look at our area in Chester County, if we look at our big beekeepers, these are what we call the sideline to commercial beekeepers. We don't have any of the mass commercial beekeepers like Grant Stiles in our Chester County. Grant Stiles is 12,000 hives. He's just over in New Jersey. And there is a defining moment of becoming true commercial. True commercial is when we say there are about 2,000-3,000 hives. Grant Stiles, as I said, is 12,000 hives, but he makes a lot of money, but his recommendation is don't get into it. You've got back problems, you've got to organize teams. It becomes a whole economy of scale with trucks and logistics and pollination, and byproducts are honey. Honey is a byproduct in his operation. To the very biggest in the US, which is 110,000 hives, which is the Adair family. So they have 110,000 hives. They get paid just over $200 a hive for the almond pollination. So making money, even for somebody with 100 hives, it might be economical for you to go to someplace like California and leave your hives there in February for 3 weeks to make $200 a hive. Okay, it could be. And again, the economics of scale are the fact that you need 400 hives on a truck, but you often find people that need an extra 50 hives or 100 hives to take to almonds, and they bring them back. Okay, so as we said, marketing, if you look at marketing, there are different mechanisms to market your products. Okay, the one thing that you can look at is going in for the internet sales. Now, if you look at, some people are selling honey for maybe $20 a pound. Some are going for $30 a pound because their honey is ultimately special. I think some of you have seen these ones. They sell small little jars of honey from exotic places. Okay, so there's always the marketing side of it where you don't have to sell in bulk. And do you sell online? Do you want to sell in supermarkets? Do you want to sell at stores? And one of the best ways of selling your honey is with a sign outside your door. Okay, so your property, you've got a driveway, you can say honey for sale, you put your jars out there, an honor system, doesn't cost you much. And I know Carol and Bob, I've seen their one, I've seen Laura's one. I think a lot of you are doing that, and it's a way to recoup some of the money. You make money out of it. And as I'm trying to emphasize here, often if we give honey to the neighbors, it's a nice way to sweeten them up so they don't complain as much, but also they might not appreciate it. I know I give honey to my neighbor, and I know that it takes them maybe 6 months to finish a jar. So they're not great honey eaters, but yet some of my other apiary sites, I will give them maybe 50 pounds of honey a year, and I know it's all gone. And when I drop the honey off periodically throughout the year, I drop it off, I get a really good thank you note and saying things like, I've already finished half a bottle, and that was 2 hours after I dropped it off. So, and they say this particular honey is absolutely wonderful. Okay, another thing that we look at is graduating from your 2 hives, your 10 hives, to increase the scale. Now, the commercial beekeepers will say, in the way that they increase, the Brett deer with their deer family bees, the way they increase is they purchase other beekeeping setups. Okay, so this is one of the main areas of increasing. The reason for that is you get the apiary site, you get the lease, you get all the hives, you get all the marketing that has been done with that. So they buy it as a completed business. If you want to increase, one of the best ways of increasing is to buy somebody who is going out of the business. And then you'll inherit the marketing, you'll maybe inherit the farmer's market, and you can go then from your 10 hives to your 30 hives. And the reason for giving this talk is that Jack McMichael and a lot of other folk have been to members of our club that have unfortunately passed away. And we go onto the property because their wife has come and said, please sort the bees out and please auction off the equipment. And we go onto the site and you can see everything has collapsed because it's already 6 months or a year after the event has happened. The bees are not worth much. Often the hives are not worth much. They've lost their market. They've lost everything and everything's deteriorated. The only value is probably some of the woodware that you would have and maybe some of the equipment that they did have. But they would have had a far higher value if they'd managed to recognize beforehand and managed to sell everything. Okay, just before I get too carried away, any questions? Yep.
Going from just giving away your money, when you start selling it, then business-wise, there's permits, certifications, things involved.
Yes, okay. We have Suzanne Pyle was our inspector for the honey room inspection. So you needed to be inspected for that. Okay, if you're selling your honey, you exempt from that if you are selling on your own property where you produce the honey. So if you're on a farm and you're selling on that farm, then you exempt, but you've got to check all the details. Suzanne Pyle has now been promoted. Has anyone had a recent hive inspection? I forget the gentleman's name, but I organized him to give a speech maybe 5-6 years ago at the CCBA. He gave a speech. I've forgotten his name directly now, but you need to have your honey room inspected for hygiene. Suzanne Pyle told us that it's very seldom that you fail because honey's not, she was very talkative and she told a lot of, don't buy anything that's from the Amish. I learned something there. So it's but yeah, you need to have your honey room authenticated. You need to have it all done, and in order to be able to sell. So if you sell someone else, you've got to have that inspection, and it's not difficult. I mean, but if you've got a shed in your backyard and you've got dirt on the floor, you're not going to pass. You need hot and cold running water, but there are different grades of it. I went through to the upper grade where I painted my honey room with epoxy paint. I covered the lights. I have no windows and a lot of other little pieces that I added in just to get mine a little bit higher. On my last inspection, the inspector said if he could use mine as a reference for training other people. So it's probably a good omen. Hot and cold running water and so on. So those are things legally you've got to get those done. Pardon?
That's the name that someone gave.
Phil Keeler. It doesn't ring a bell.
County Health Department, is that just?
Yeah, it's the PA. I think it's a PA. But pardon? How? It's Chester County Health Department. Yeah. Sorry, I've just got their names on my phone, so they call me when they want an inspection. So it's during COVID, we had to take photographs of our rooms, and then we got granted the license. So that's one of the hurdles that you've got to go through. Once you've been through it, and your honey, you want your honey to be hygienic. You don't want to have it where there's botulism imported into the honey, and you're accused of this or that and the next thing. But honey is generally safe compared to something like meat packing or baking, cooking and undercooked eggs and so on. So honey is relatively good. Yeah.
You get insurance for that?
Another issue if you're selling your honey is you need insurance. So if I'm selling to a supermarket or I'm selling to a small shop, you need insurance. Now, it's combined with my apiary insurance. So, and again, about 6 or 7 years ago, we went through and had a person that delivered this. It's Vince Rinchuso. If you want to contact him again, it's worthwhile to have your apiary insured. And in fact, my home insurance turned out to be the same as my apiary insurance. They did it with a home insurance, and that covers me for selling honey. If somebody finds a bit of glass in the honey and they try to sue you, that's insurance for things like that. So it's worthwhile to have. So they want to, if you're selling your honey as you get bigger, it's good to have that insurance. And remember, we've got our own member, the Vince. Who else is insured? Anyone else insured with Vince and Chusa?
No.
Yeah, and Ed as well. So, pardon? Yeah. It's
not all insurance.
Yeah, it's specialized. A chat to Ed as well, or myself, and we can give you the name, Vince's name. What might be a good thing for a talk is to maybe get him in to talk. He's a beekeeper, so he's Tom McKinney. Oh, Tom McKinney does insurance as well. So
The other thing is, they want to have an insurance policy.
So maybe insurance. That's something there that you need to get as you go. But as you progress and you get more and you're making more, it becomes part of the costs. What I do as well is that I declare everything to the IRS. Everything is delivered and the amounts onto that. Other things that we haven't talked very quickly in the last 2 minutes is the extra money that you make. Okay, you can do things like cutouts, and you can go remove bees from people's houses, from those who aren't that diligent with swarm prevention. You can take those swarms out of somebody's house as well. So those are other options for making money with the beekeeping. So there was a guy in Montgomery County that I know that charged $2,000 for removing 2 colonies from one person's house. I don't like doing it. I hate doing it. I used to do this as a youngster. I used to remove colonies. I get stung, and I think it gets quite dangerous. Yeah. So it's more for a younger person. You sometimes in attics, the heat and so on. But I charge about $500 for a cutout. So, but depends if it's high or low, and it might come down or go up according to how dangerous is it and how difficult is it. And you generally don't get much honey from them, and generally the bees are not worth honey because they haven't been treated if they're suffering from their own diseases and peoples and everything else. Okay, just before I end, very quickly, this is the first year or the earliest that I've started treatment ever. Since I've been here in Chester County for 16 years. So this is the earliest I'm treating. Why do I treat so early? Because it's not very well. Okay, I did Formic Pro. I wasn't happy with the Formic Pro results. I'm still seeing Varroa. So I'm using oxalic acid glycerine pads, the slow release glycerine pads. They seem to be a lot more effective. Please treat now. Please treat now. Okay. And that's it. Any questions? Who's coming?